Welcome to Cashflow Diary, a podcast where we discuss business, money, real estate, and the sharing economy. As a full-time real estate investor, entrepreneur, and all-around problem solver, I have had the privilege of developing individuals into powerful business owners. And today, the focus turns towards you. Our mission is to help you build your real estate empire by leveraging strategies to grow yourself, your mind, and your wallet. Let's get started. All right, then welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast. This is your host, Jay. For those of you who are here for the first time, by all means, make sure you go over to cashflowdiary.com/blueprint. You've been wondering how to build your cash flow, and we teach you how to do it, and for free. Cashflowdiary.com/blueprint. We will give you an 8-hour training on how to get started in the short-term rental world. You'll be able to make some real money today with the information that we're giving to you at no additional cost to you. And today we're going to be talking about, well, something that I get asked from time to time. People wonder, how on earth do you continually produce? When do you sleep? Do you sleep? Have you slept ever? And the answer is yes, all of those things are true, but it comes down to the idea of having a morning routine. So we're going to break down how I look at them, definitely take some feedback from those who are listening live. And if for those of you who listen to prior seasons, you're wondering, what do you mean listening live? Well, all you got to do is get over to, and there's an app, it's called Clubhouse. We are now doing our recordings live with a quote unquote live studio audience, if you will. And they're able to listen in and occasionally ask questions that sometimes help them in real time and definitely helps you when you hear the recording. So feel free to follow us at the Cashflow Diary Cartel on Clubhouse so that you can get the notifications when we are doing podcast recordings as well. In fact, today's episode comes directly from one of those who has been studying the short-term rental industry with us for a little bit now and asked the simple question, hey, Jay, what is your morning routine? So what we're doing is we're recording that information, not only for her, but also for you, and giving you an opportunity to ask some questions and see if there's something you can't tighten up to maybe help you on your come up, if that makes sense. So that's the goal. That's the plan for today. And we're going to do our best to make that as simple and as easy as possible as we talk about morning routines. And very specifically, what do I do in the morning? How do I look at them? And I think the way that I look at them will help you, because it's not like specific activities as much as it is making sure that there are certain categories, if you will. So in fact, let's get into it. So when it comes to the idea of the morning routine, what we're talking about is 5 very specific categories. So what I'm going to do on this episode is we're going to go through the 5 and we'll take questions from those of you who are listening live as well and get some comments, because some of you are probably business owners yourselves and you have some thoughts about what you do in a consistent fashion when it comes to a morning routine. And one of the things that you can always remember is that what works for one may not work for another. So this is at best a suggestion. By no means am I saying do it this way or else you won't be successful. That is not the case. What I am saying is that I'm offering this as a suggestion of some ideas of how you can begin to structure your day, because once you cross that line from employee or self-employed, you're no longer paid for your presence. You're paid for the specific amount of value that you can bring to the hour. So you're not paid per hour, but how much value can you bring to the hour? He or she who can bring more value to the hour, well, that's a good thing. And when an athlete trains for the Olympics, they go into very strict regimented details. It's very clear. Certain things are planned out. When they approach the starting line, they're ready. And just imagine if a business owner trained for their business the way that athletes train for their sport, what would happen if you decided to become a business owner like that? And that's exactly where, for me, morning routines come into play. It gives me an ability to train for the business on a daily basis, every day, so that, you've heard the saying, if, don't have to get ready, just stay ready, right? And those types of things matter. Conditioning your body to respond a certain way, your mind to respond a certain way, so that you can be ready to do battle, go to work, or create the value that it is that your business creates, is what is required for the consistent output that is necessary. Now, with that being said, let me talk about the 5 categories and kind of go from there. The 5 categories are as follows. They are mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, and financial. Again, mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, and financial. Let me explain what I mean. When I think of a morning routine, I think of doing something in each of those 5 categories, doing one thing in each of those 5 categories so that at the end of the time, I've addressed hopefully all the big things that have been either keeping me up at night or those worries that sometimes hit your brain the moment you wake up, but ultimately allow me to be ready for the day. Instead of being attacked by the day or letting the day in, I have the ability to set intentions and directions long before I open up that email. By the way, in none of those categories is anything that has to do with like check email, by the way. So don't do that in the morning. I can tell you, doing that will destroy your productivity in so many different ways. I don't care what it is. It can wait. Take care of yourself. Self-care is not selfish. It's necessary. That's all I can tell you is at the end of the day, we're implementing or having been doing things like this for a very long time now. It helps me to be consistent. And more importantly, when you fall off the horse, the wagon, whatever you say, you have a way to get back on. So again, those categories: mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, and financial. Mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, and financial. And those will be the 5 categories. So what does that mean? Well, in order to implement a good routine, in my opinion, in order to have a good tomorrow, it starts with a great tonight, meaning get your butt to bed because you need a certain amount of sleep. All of us do. And it's hard to be consistent with the things you want to do in the morning when you are inconsistent with the amount of rest that you are actually giving your body the opportunity to have. If you're not giving your body the opportunity to perform at its best, i.e. go to sleep, then you are asking for failure or much more struggle to deal with implementing any part of a morning routine. So that means, yes, even though you are out of mom's house and you don't have to listen to dad around your bedtime anymore, it means go to bed. And yes, give yourself a bedtime. Now, I'm more concerned about the time you get up than the time you go to bed, meaning there can be, and often, especially with travel and all kinds of stuff, fluctuations on the time that you go to bed. But the time you get up needs to stay as close to the same as humanly possible, down to the minute. Because if you can entrain yourself to respond that way, it will help your mind and your body to all function. You'll start to feel it. Your circadian rhythms will adjust so that you have the ability, you have the right type of energy, you have the right type of resources in order to prepare yourself for the day as well as then execute. So a good tomorrow starts with a great tonight. Is one of the philosophies, if you will, that I'd like to adopt when it comes to these morning routines. So that means sleep. The second thing, which is going to sound just as basic, is consume the appropriate amounts of water. What it comes down to is most of us don't drink enough water. You probably live in a state of functional dehydration and don't even realize it. Maybe part of the reason you're not sleeping is because you're not consuming enough water and you're then not staying asleep. You're not getting the rest you need, which then makes everything else difficult. And I know it sounds like those are 2 of the most basic things, but being able to track your sleep, the amount of sleep that you need, and more importantly, quality of that sleep. There's too many devices these days. I've tried them all that can help you with that. And that's part of how I learned what was necessary for me, for my body. For example, I know I need exactly 6 hours and 20 minutes of sleep in order to perform at my optimum. 6 hours, 20 minutes. That's what it takes for me right now. And being able to make sure that happens. And if I know, for example, if I want to get up at 5 o'clock, so I'm typically up 4:30, 5 o'clock. That's my world. So that means I can easily backtrack the 6 hours and 20 minutes. And well, it's not just 6 hours and 20 minutes, because when you begin to track the quality of your sleep, you realize that your time in bed, it takes time to fall asleep. And then there's this wake up cycle. So it's probably closer to 7 hours of actually being in bed with the intent of going to sleep. Therefore, and you end up developing all of the routines, doing the math to figure out, okay, if I'm going to hit this goal, then I need to make sure that I am in bed with the intent of going to sleep by 9:30, 10 o'clock. And now you have a way to begin to keep yourself accountable, developing new habits, because your intent for tomorrow starts tonight. Now, there's a number of people on stage. Before I go too much further, I'm curious what your thoughts are about what I'm saying at this point.
Yeah, so I think that as far as you saying you should get up at the same time every morning, I think that's great. But what if you have insomnia? So you didn't get any sleep the night before, didn't get any sleep that night, and you want to just lie in bed to try to get at least an hour.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that if you have insomnia?
Well, and that's why the routines, that's why I like routines. Okay. Because when I've gone through bouts of that, being in a routine helps you deal with the fact that your body is off for whatever reason. And yes, so I still want to get up. I still want to keep pushing forward because I've got to it is really, really important that I stay on track and that I begin to train my body to respond to a certain way. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm going to begin to track down the patterns, because there's a pattern to it. What is causing me to not sleep? Is it's possibly nutritional, but I don't know. But these are things that I like to look at in order to figure that out. What am I doing before I go to sleep? So now we're talking about potentially a good sleep routine. What is the routine you do before you go to bed that tells your body, hey, we're going to bed now? So let's develop one of those too, because some of us will need one on both sides. How do I wake myself up and how do I put myself to bed? And those routines make a huge difference in my ability in my ability to fall asleep, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense.
So that can be, which again, while it doesn't sound, it sounds way too simple. It's like, okay, what do I got to do to make more money? Well, what I'm saying is go to bed and drink water. So let's start with that. And now that we've gotten at least that far, then the rest of our routine is where the things, like I said, in the 5 categories: the mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, and then financial. So let's break these down and talk about them. When I say mental, I literally mean something to stimulate mental brain activity in the same way that, again, you can exercise a muscle like in your legs, your arms, your chest day, or, whatever. What are you doing intentionally to give your brain, quote unquote, exercises? There's lots of, apps today that are out there that do this. Your Lumosities. My favorite is Peak, P-E-A-K. And you can even get family plans, all this other stuff. So the kids are playing games, but they're just literally brain games designed to wake up your mental capacities for thought. So maybe that's only 10, 15 minutes. But the point is, I'm doing an active activity that is designed to exercise the brain and create thought or inspire creative thought, etc. But what I'm not doing is necessarily reading blogs. What I'm not doing is intaking someone else's opinion about anything. But I am doing something that is an exercise that helps me to get ready for what the external day has in force for me. Then spiritual. This is your meditation. This could be your prayer. Could be reading your Bible or Quran or whatever, a book or faith you practice if you have one, or just, like I said, meditation, etc., or learning to meditate for some of us. This activity is one of the more neglected, dare I say, because we fail to heal or nurture, if you will, the part of us that maybe is a little soft, tender, not practiced, or sometimes we just don't talk about it. But we want to address all parts of us, because how we show up has a lot to do with our spiritual capacity. Your ability to give is kind of in here. And if you don't have that capacity right now, maybe there's some additional nurturing that could happen, especially if you're doing it on a consistent basis. And if you're expecting that the spiritual food to come from somewhere else, maybe start trying to feed yourself. Be for you what others haven't been, so that you can still be who you choose to be. If you physical, this is probably the easiest one. This is maybe you run for 7 miles. I'm a Peloton fan, so I'm on that bike a lot because I like it. It's fun. I like the music. It's great. So this is clearly the easy one to understand, but something that is physical. It doesn't have to be as aggressive as, Peloton workout or some sort of training for a marathon. It could just be walking 7 miles outdoors, if you will. It just has to be something that is, again, physical, something that's focused for you to get the blood flowing and make sure circulation continues to happen, whatever that looks like for you at this moment. And it being consistent is really what it comes down to. And then emotional. This, for me, is often something to do with one of my therapists. I have multiple. Many of you already know I'm autistic and I have ADHD. And then there's just the stuff that comes with life, being newly divorced, as well as having 4 kids, 3 daughters. Pray for me. Yes. And then and understand that making sure that even as a man that I acknowledge and address emotional needs is important. Between the online apps today, as well as, making sure you have the right support structures around you, you can't ignore your emotional health. It just won't go well too long. And then lastly, and intentionally lastly, is, financial, just making sure that the books are in order, whatever those books are. Maybe it doesn't take that long. Check the bank account, make sure bills are paid, this, that, and the other. And then go about your day because you've done something in each of those categories. And sometimes, especially in the financial category, what it is that you're reading or learning a new word from an Investopedia or CNBC or something of that nature. So for a long time, that was my financial thing. I had to learn a new word. And maybe that word is, ROI, return on investment, or maybe it's what's IRR, internal rate of return, or maybe it's how to use a financial calculator. Whatever it is, there's something in each of these 5 categories that you can think about in order to do. Now, here's the secret. In the same way that I said, the key to a good today starts with a great tonight, is to understand that listing out the acceptable activities in each of these categories for you ahead of time will help you to do them. It removes the resistance from feeling like, oh man, what can I do in this particular area? So let me say it differently. A small takeaway exercise. Now that you've got the 5 categories, come up with 5 activities or 5 things you could do in each of those categories that would relate to that category. And now that you've got your list, you've got so for those of you who are like me, and you're like, I don't like structure. I don't want to do the same boring thing every day. Got it. Hear you? Now what you've got is 5 things in 5 different categories, and you get to mix and match until your heart's content, so that you are addressing all of the needs, the whole human, if you will, in a very systematic way on a consistent basis without incurring that price of boredom, which typically means you're not going to do it at all. But by doing this, what's great is that you continually put yourself in a state of being willing to grow. That growth mindset is probably one of the largest benefits that I can say that happens on a consistent basis, is that, hey, being able to understand that I could be wrong, and more importantly, you could be right, and being willing to accept that information so that we can grow as a human, as a person, as a father, in all of my roles. That's a good thing. So my point is, by doing these things consistently, you develop your own version of compound interest. So instead of letting money compound, if you will, you're now letting knowledge and your work compound, just like you did if you went to the gym, consistently lifting weights, preparing for a fitness, a fitness tournament or a bodybuilding thing, whatever it comes down to, is that doing this also has a compound effect to it. So the longer you do it, the more benefits you receive, which also means when you first start, it might not look like much, but keep doing it anyway. Now, before we go too much further, I just want to find out. I see another person has come to the stage. Jenny, I'm curious, are you there?
I am here.
Yeah. What are you thinking about what I just said?
I was just thinking, oh, crap, I got on here before I heard him say what the 5 things were.
The 5 things. I appreciate that. Okay. So again, the 5 things were the 5 categories of activities inside of a morning routine are mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, and financial. So those are the 5 categories. Does that make sense? Mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, and financial. And then find 5 activities in each of those categories that you could do. And then now you can mix them up any way you like.
Yes, I've got all of those things. I was like, damn it, what was the categories? Yes, I agree. I completely agree with you. I actually give my coaching clients very similar type advice when it comes to learning, growing, and trying to identify how they really work, what their real true strengths and skills are versus what they actually do.
Got it. I like it. And Annette, what about yourself? When you're thinking about these categories, how I'm laying them out and the idea of having 5 different activities in each of them.
Hi, guys. Jay, I really think that you're on point, especially regarding sleep.
I knew you would. I had a feeling you were going to go straight to that one.
Yes, we need it. There's this, people say, like, all hustle, no sleep. You'll sleep when you die. No, you won't sleep when you die. You'll be dead. You need to sleep. Like you've got to get sleep in. And everyone's number is different. Like Jay said, he knows his is 620. Everyone's is different. I know someone 4 hours is the maximum that they can sleep any night or day. But it is absolutely critical. That is the time when your body recovers. So use it wisely. And it's not always at night. Some people's schedule is not a 9 to 5 schedule or a daytime schedule. Some people work through the night. Sometimes my schedule changes and I'm flying to clients and my day might start at 2 a.m. So, or 4 a.m. It changes all the time, but I'm a great napper. So I take plenty of naps to try to get at least 7 hours in a day. Most of the time I can get it consistent. It's like continuous sleep, but sometimes I can't when I'm traveling, when I'm on planes, and it's very hard for me to sleep on planes sometimes. So I don't, but on the plane, I do other exercises like those mental exercises and education is most of the time it's education. I'm reading something.
Just love the fact that you came up and you were totally caping for club nap. Yeah, because I'm sure there's lots of people who are like, yes, you said naps. You may have just given someone who's listening now to the podcast the opportunity to nap during the day. They're like, wait a minute, I thought that was only for kindergartners.
No, give yourself permission to take a nap. Your body is tired. It needs to recover, rest and recover. Give it time to do that.
And I think it's interesting that we have to think about this in terms of giving ourselves permission, but it's definitely the truth. Give yourself permission to take a nap. There's no shame in the fact that you're tired at 2:00, unless you notice that you're always tired at 2:00, which is probably a clue that there's something you're eating that's making you tired at 2:00. That's very possible. Well, I know. What did you say, Ned? I knew you were going to say something about that.
Yes, Jay, chicken fingers.
Stop it. Why you got to tell everybody? Man, I like my chicken fingers. Ain't nothing wrong with a good old chicken fingers.
Right. All of those like fatty, heavy foods are going to make you're tired. It takes your body more energy to process those types of foods. So you're going to be a little more tired. And overeating is something that we always do. We see something we like Chick-fil-A, right, Jay? So we don't just eat the sandwich. We eat the sandwich and maybe some fries and maybe have a large lemonade because their lemonade is so great. But
no, it's the frosted lemonade specifically. Or sometimes they have the strawberry frosted lemonade too. I'm just telling you, it's really good.
Yeah. But it's we eat because we love it. It tastes great to us. Well, our brain really, because it doesn't taste great. If you detox, then you taste it again, you'll be like, oh, this doesn't even taste like food. But anyway, that's a whole different conversation.
You're not making me want to detox right now. That's a whole sacrifice. I'm not prepared for that level. Right now, we're just talking about morning routines. You're going to make me cry.
No, I'm not. My morning routine, it's definitely changed over the past year. Taking care, being a caregiver is it's not the easiest thing to do, but my routine has changed. It has, and I'm trying to get back to a new routine. Actually, creating a new routine.
We've been talking so far about all kinds of unique things, and now some of you probably just learned or relearned, because if you listen to the prior seasons, you already knew that I had a thing for Chick-fil-A. But maybe you've also gained some appreciation for other basic things like going to sleep and drinking water. What I want to do now, though, especially for those of you who are here live, is I want to hear what does your morning routine look like? And very specifically, especially for those who are listening to the recording now, many of them are transferring themselves. They're trying to become something different. They're becoming, say, there's a morning routine as an employee, and then that's probably different as you begin to open up your first business, develop your investing skills and habits and whatnot. So if there's anything that's switched for you because your life changed or you've changed in some way, shape, or form, I would love it if you address how you navigated that challenge. So Ned, let's go back to you. And what's your morning routine look like?
Hi, everyone. My morning routine is it is different these days, but the first thing I do when I open my eyes is I take a deep breath. 3 of them, actually. I take 3 deep breaths, and then I intentionally cough. Energy is everything. And so everything through the night, my body recovering, and even my mind and my brain being at rest, everything that it was doing and working on overnight, recovering, I want to cough to get any of that extra energy out before I start my day. This is not something that people do all the time or maybe have heard of, but this is what I do.
Okay, hold on. Did you say cough, like forcing yourself to cough, like if you had a cold cough type of thing? I just want to make sure I'm hearing that correctly. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Keep going.
Absolutely. It really ties into my emotional as well, but I do that kind of breath work and a little bit of meditation to clear my throat chakra, because for so long, this is tied into the emotional. For so long, I was silenced for so long. So I do that intentionally every morning to kind of clear my throat chakra. And then after I do that, I drink a glass of water, because I know that at some point of the day, I'm going to be missing a glass of water. At some point, I try to drink as much water as I can. Sometimes I don't get to. So I make sure that I drink a glass of water. I start before my feet even hit the ground. I drink a glass of water. I keep it on my nightstand. And then I go into my full on meditation. And then after meditation, I stretch. And the stretching doesn't have to be for too long. I will say, oh, well, yesterday when before I went to bed, I felt like my hamstrings needed a little more love. And sometimes I just stretch laying in the bed. And sometimes I actually get up and get on the floor and do a full on stretch my body. And then I'll hop in the shower or get dressed and start my day. Go downstairs and start my day. And in starting my day, when I get to the downstairs to the kitchen, I will write out some affirmations, and then have my tea, and I will say those affirmations. When I'm on the road, it looks a little bit different, but I still get in most of those things.
I noticed you don't have check email on that list.
Oh, yeah. And so, okay.
I was messing with you. It's not.
Don't judge
I
me.
didn't think it was actually
It
going to
says
be there.
21,000 emails. I know. It literally, it says I have 21,000 emails, unread emails, and I am the absolute worst with emails.
All I'm going to say is I can beat that number.
Yeah, well, that's in one account.
Oh, no.
That's just my Yahoo. On
Maybe
my
not.
Gmail, there's 67,000 unread emails.
You win.
And I'm just terrible at it. And I'll say, okay, please send it to me again so it's at the top and I can see it. And then I am distracted or I'm doing something and I don't see it again. So
how long have would you say you've been practicing or, having a routine? And more importantly, what benefit have you found?
It really sets the tone for my day. I know when I notice when I don't do any of them, I will have a crappy time until I realize that, okay, you didn't start the day right, but you need to start it now.
Yeah.
Because I really try not to make, this is something I'm working on too. I try not to make 5 minutes of a bad experience or whatever. I try not to make that 5 minutes last the entire day. This was like a brief moment. I do not have to stay irritated or sad or mad for the entire day. Like, get over it, Sharnette, get over it.
No doubt. Now I'm curious. I'm going to go to someone else real fast. Because of having these, we'll say bad days, there have been times, and I'm curious to know if you've done this, where you go back to bed and you get up again and do your morning routine to start over. I know I have done that more than once. Dr. Foster, is that something that you've done?
If I'm batching, yes. And by batching, I mean that if I'm intentionally stringing long portions of time to get a project done, I learned a long time ago, and then I also saw that the data supported it, and that is that multitasking is seriously overrated. And so there's some times where I interrupt my sleep cycle to do what I call sprints, and I use batching to do it, where I'm really pushing to get a project done. If I'm in my regular routine, there's a regular time to rest, and then I wake up to do many things that people have already said. And the spiritual part that you talked about really resonates with me. There's an ancient text that says, I love those who love me, and those who seek me early shall find me. And I think that ancient text is really powerful, because that means that getting up early for me is a way of leveraging my day, right? It's sort of a way of exercising, leveraging, and working the first tenth of my day. And when I do that, I've seen in general over time that the rest, or the 90% of my day, is also blessed. The other thing that's important for me in doing a morning routine is that I'm able to control my habit creation, right? I think that we all know that what really runs us are not the conscious thoughts or the revelations or the ahas. Like, okay, I got a new revelation now, and I want to eat better, right? And that really feels good. But actually, what runs my life are the tapes that play behind my eyes. And that's because habits create their own gravity. So even though I say, okay, I want to start eating salads, there's something that gets in the way, because I've formed this habit of, unfortunately, maybe getting a slice of pizza, things like that. So the morning routine is a way of replacing the old tapes that play behind my eyes. If I can do and modify and start a new morning routine and do it for X amount of days, weeks, or months, then I can create sort of the escape velocity from the old habits, and at the same time create new tapes. So those are kind of the important things. Many of you have already said the things that I include in my morning routine, but it depends on the season and on the project that I'm working on. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I love it. It is what I love even more, and I hope everyone else picked up on, was the fact that there can be more than one type of routine because there's definitely, when you said that I thought about the times when I go into what I like to call acquisition mode, when when it's time to like buy hotels, buy property over and over and over again. I'm performing differently. My day-to-day tasks are different. And because I live in California, getting up quote unquote early basically means getting up when the East Coast is there. So it's like, it's not so much early as it, and depending on where the property is, I'm pretty much operating on that particular time zone. So things can and do often look different. So I love where that's going, because it creates yet another layer of flexibility when it comes to hacking yourself, if you will, to create the productivity that's required. At the end of the day, for those of us that have learned to create a routine for ourselves, what I would love to, if you could share a little bit about what was difficult about it, especially if you can remember back to when you first did it, what was difficult about it? Because at the end of the day, it didn't happen for me. Just like, okay, morning routine, here we go. It was not that quick, that easy. It was developed over time. So I'm curious, anyone want to speak to the difficulty in creating one and making it your own, and what you did to help yourself adopt such? Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Foster.
I'm glad you asked that question, because it gets into one of the activities that I haven't heard mentioned. And that is, for me, what was difficult was adding writing to my morning routine. Historically, over the years,
I'm sorry, did you say writing like with a pen, or riding like on a horse?
Oh, sorry, writing like with a pen.
Okay, got it. Go ahead.
Over the years, my comfortable place would be to write in the evening, right, or late afternoon. And there's two things that I would like to say, and it could be of some benefit to the listeners. And that is the importance of what writing does, right? Like, there's a common notion out there that that says that putting one's thoughts down is the purpose of writing. Like, the most powerful thing is jotting it down, or getting the notes, or listening to Clubhouse. Okay, I got that down. And I think that it's deeper than that. There's more to that. Instead, I think writing empowers one to figure out what their thoughts are. In other words, what I've learned is that writing is the doing part of my thinking, right? And so the more I began the discipline of writing, even though it was very difficult, and I started out, to answer your question, by just writing a paragraph, right? And then maybe doing a page, or trying to stick to a daily word count. And over a period of time, what I've learned is that writing, I'll say it like this. My thoughts are given to me through my writing. So the writing is just not the collection of ideas, but it's it's how I create meaning about my ideas. And that was a very, very big surprise. And it has really, really served me well through my writing, because, again, I think it's the doing part of thinking. And I was able to overcome it by writing in the morning for 30 days, and it kind of became a habit.
Man, I love that. Is it Mike? You just joined us. Did you have something that you wish to contribute as we talk about the idea of a morning routine?
Oh, yes, indeed, I would, my brother. How's it going, guys? I'm new here. I just saw the subject matter, and I'm very passionate about morning routines. Oh, my God. So thank you for having me. Thank you for having me on stage.
No problem. Make sure you follow the club. We're starting a new season of content. Our podcast has been downloaded nearly 3 million times. Wow. Who knows what's happened? So feel free to come on by.
Yeah, man, this is awesome. I'm about to download it today. Boy, don't test me. Okay, so the subject is morning routines and the difficulties surrounding them. So, me as a person, I think much like the rest of us, I think we can all attest that routines are not necessarily easy to establish, but they can definitely serve us if we set them up properly, right? So they have a saying that, what's easy to do is hard to live with, but what's hard to do is easy to live with. And so changing my mindset on routines made it a bit easier. So, one of the first things that I wanted to get control of was my diet in the morning, making sure that I had a nutritional breakfast, making sure that I was flooding my system with vitamins and minerals and water and stuff like that. But in a household where other people, your environment, don't take it as seriously, it can be challenging because, your environment plays a factor in some of your decision-making process. Now, that's not to say that we have no willpower and that we are subject to whatever's going on around us, but it does, to an extent, play a bit of a factor. And so, for me as a person, I had to change my mindset. I had to say, what do I value more? Do I value the immediate gratification of the present, or do I value the long-term benefits of my future? And every day I just made the decision, for this day and this day alone, I will choose to value my future, right? And then I would do this, and like, I'll just give the songs, right? So like, I do what I call the 3 treasures in the morning as far as breakfast. If anybody's trying to get that settled down, this is what I typically do. So I'll do water, tea, and a smoothie, right? Keep it very simple. Water for the spirit, tea for the mind, and a smoothie for nutrients for the body, right? Keeping it super simple. Your body processes certain things at certain times of the day, and there's a whole bunch of different science. But anyway, I've been doing that for about 2 years now, and I feel amazing, not because of, what I'm doing, but because of how it's making me feel, knowing that I have a sense of control over a certain part of my day. So I know for a fact, without anybody's influence, I know I'm disciplined that I can do this task. I might not do everything else right in the world, but I know that the discipline that I'm setting for the routine, that part is clicking. Okay, from 10 to 12 or from 8 to 10, whatever, that part is solid, and that is sacred. That is something that I take pride in. And so, if you do something in the morning, it might also help to mirror that and do something toward the night. And so slowly but surely, you kind of take bigger chunks of your day and you gain mastery and control over those things. And you'll notice that less and less time is devoted to things that are outside of your control. And then that sense of control gives a sense of confidence, right? Like, I can control my first few hours of my day and my last few hours. And if I get good enough, I can control the middle part of my day. And as a matter of fact, I can control my whole day, my whole week, even my whole month. And so you start playing that game with yourself. How far can I go, and how many days can I go in a row without breaking the chain, and make it a game, right? Like, making it fun. And I think a lot of us struggle with like the general attitude around routine and say, oh, well, I have to do. Like, no, let's change that from I have to do to I get to do, right? I get to exercise my willpower and move forward toward a future of my desire. I get to do that, right? Like, I get to choose what is optimal for my best benefit. And that's exciting.
Man, like, you're going to keep talking.
God, I get to
this episode is going to be super long.
Sorry.
I got to ask you a question, though. No, it's no big deal. I just got to ask you this thing, though, because you said something, and I think, and I don't want anyone to miss it, because I heard it, and I'm like, ooh. Because sometimes when we're wanting to do something, become a different person, it can feel like you're thinking about it for, oh my God, I got to do this forever and all this long time, and this is going to be hard, blah, 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 blah. But you said something. You said, for today and today only, I will choose. And I was like, oh, that phrase in and of itself was very, very powerful. And I'm curious to know where you learned that, sir.
I read a bit.
Yeah, I knew I had a feeling that was a part of it.
A little bit. Some Robin Sharma, some Tony Robbins, Jim Rohns, and your Tony, right? So some of the guys that I'm sure we're familiar with. But
so you weren't born with it?
No, not at all.
It just didn't happen. It wasn't taught to you at school.
Unfortunately, right?
So no one should feel ashamed for not knowing. Is my point.
Right. I mean, this is something you have to actively seek. I mean, guys, Jay and everybody else on stage, these guys are people that clearly value self-development, personal development, elevating themselves, going beyond the norm. And we shouldn't feel bad about not having been taught these kinds of things growing up. It's not common knowledge, because to do these things is not common practice, right? It's not common practice for people to wake up and say, I'm going to, again, for today only, I'm going to do this morning routine. I'm going to get control of this. I'm going to become this. I'm going to shift and become someone that is worthy of these types of results. Like, that's not a normal train of thought. And if you haven't had that up until this point, or if you haven't had that in your past, you should not feel bad, because that's not a normal train of thought. You are in the 5% when you start to think like that, right? Jay and everybody else, they're in that category. They work to become these guys, right? Like, nobody was born with this. Just nobody came out the womb up. I'm just going to be Superman and that's it. And everybody just got to get over it. And I'm just perfect. No, guys, like, everybody that you see that's successful at any level, at anything, has had to work for it. And that includes working through the mind, right? So I just want, and I really don't mean to take up too much space, but I'm passionate about that, guys, because like, it takes effort, but that effort is worth it when you see the results that you get. But 100%. With that being said, I yield the mic.
I totally understand 100%, and
I'm excited.
It's exciting to be able to hear other people understand these same principles from a completely different perspective. And for those of you listening, I don't care if you're driving right now, you're changing the diaper, you're walking the dog. Here's the point. The point is how you do anything is how you do everything. And today it's not too late to start at the end of the day. Now, this episode would not be complete if we did not give one more person the opportunity to ask a question or comment on this topic. So, Ms. Tamika, how are you? And I'm curious, was there an additional question that you have for us on this topic of morning routines?
No additional questions. And hello, everyone in the room. Pleasure to be here. Jay, I apologize. I'm late. I was on the phone with my designer trying to secure
look
designs.
At you trying to make money happen, getting more short-term rentals like you're supposed to. Never apologize for chasing your dreams and doing what's required. That's fine.
But yeah, no more questions right now about that. Just happy to be a part of the room and to learn what you all are doing to have those miracle mornings.
Yeah, it's funny that's the one thing. His book actually didn't come up until you said that right now, even though each of us discussed and we talked about many different ways that we address ourselves and the world, or get ready to address the world. And I think one of the most important things that for everyone listening today is that you can take away many different things from many different tasks, many different ways of doing it. So there's no one right way, no one wrong way, but yet some things that are the same, or consistency in meaning the length of either lengths of time that it's done on a consistent basis. Notice it's not done on a perfect basis. You don't have to do it perfectly, meaning every 7 out of 7 days. In fact, there's a concept called, I like to think of it as win the year. See, to win the year, before you win the year, you got to win the month. Before you win the month, you got to win the week. Before you win the week, you got to win the day. And it's easy to win the day because you just decide the 3 things that you're going to get done. And so long as those 3 things get done, guess what? You won today. And then if you do that 4 out of 7 times, that means you won the week, because there's 7 days in a week. And if you do it 3 out of the 4 weeks in a month, you've won the month. And if you do it just 7 months out of 12, you've won the year, meaning 5 entire months you can lose and still leave the year with a winning record. And that's something that has helped me tremendously, to say the least, because there have been times where even doing the morning routine and going through it and understanding that I'm doing these things, when I went through the process of dealing with, losing millions of dollars in one transaction, when going through this process of divorce and still and making sure that, the rest of me is intact, and going through the challenges and changes that comes with having 4 children, 3 daughters. Yes. Oh boy. All of them, like the last one is going to be a teenager now. Crazy. And having to deal with all of the stuff, AKA boys, that come along with that at the same time is all a part of who we are and what we're bringing to the world, and where we must find ways to be able to deal with our day without neglecting ourselves. And here's what I hope. I hope that this particular episode helped you in some way, helped you understand that it's not too late, helped you understand that you can begin right where you are with what you have, and that you are more than enough. In fact, as I always like to say, you know what it's time to do? It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean today? That means today you're going to write out on a piece of paper those 5 categories. Remember, mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, financial. And then you're going to come up with 5 activities in each of those categories that you can do. And then start tonight. Remember, a good tomorrow starts with a great tonight. Go to bed so that you can get up, drink the appropriate amounts of water, and begin your first morning routine.
Off of what you were kind of wrapping up with a moment ago. And that really is about life, right? Like, you have 4 kids, right? And first of all, my apologies about, the divorce. I know that can be a major transition. So I hope you make it through that peacefully. But I have 3 boys.
That didn't happen, but that's okay.
But my question for you, though, Jay, when you have these major things coming at you, how do you stay focused, right? Because it's so easy to get distracted. I mean, a big thing like a divorce, a big thing like 4 kids. For me, it's 3 kids. Then I'm a realtor. Then I'm also doing my short-term rentals. And I'm also doing my W-2 on your goals without sort of being derailed, right? Like, I know you talked about having your year, your month, your week, but it all boils down to the day. But when you have these sort of competing priorities, how do you stay focused and stay on track when life is wearing you down?
Got it. I give myself permission to fail. This is why the definitions of what a win is important, and why the definitions of what success is are important to me. On any given day, I only need to do 3 things. Any day. So no matter what comes at me, 3 things, it's all that was required. So for example, back when squatting and bank-owned property and all this other stuff, my external environment was suggesting, you got a problem, you're broke, you're never going to be any better than what you are. You only have a public high school diploma. In fact, you can barely walk and talk. So what are you really going to do, Mr. Real Estate Guy? That was the external suggestion. And I would let myself say, I sold myself literally on the idea that so long as I did these 3 things, I would let myself feel successful. See, many of us, we don't let ourselves feel successful unless we've achieved X, Y, Z. So we say things like, once I have $1 million, then I'm successful. That's what we say. And it's unfortunate because the inverse of that is also true, meaning we don't have the $1 million. We're not successful, which doesn't feel good. But if I said to you, hey, I remembered to hug each of my kids, tell them I love you once, and I took out the trash today, that if those were the 3 things, guess what? I'm successful. See, when you make success easy and you play that game with yourself, the one you're able to go from strength to strength. You don't have to hope an external validation comes to you that says, okay, cool, you're good. So I play that same game. And sometimes it is exactly like I said. It could be, did I tell my kids I love them today? That is enough to make me, that's one of the areas that I was talking about that lets me, and I give myself permission to be successful, because some days that might be all I could do is say, I love you. Not necessarily, especially now, because they're not always in my physical presence, if that makes sense. So I have to modify what success looks like for each and every day. It's when I let the world define that for me is when it begins to feel overwhelming, because they're putting their expectations and understanding on what they think are my resources, in order to then therefore call it successful. So for example, today, one of the things I had to do was to record a podcast. Does that make sense? And that's really, I was like, cool. If I can just get the podcast recorded today, I win. That's all I needed to do. And so when you said what you said earlier, I was, yes, I'm going to win today. Meaning the entire day up until this point, I hadn't won, but I knew it was in the back of my head. I'm like, I can't go to bed. I got to win today. If I'm going to win today, I got to record the podcast. And I make it easy for myself to win. Does that mean everything got addressed? It did not. It does not. It'll carry over to tomorrow. And then tomorrow, I'm going to see what those priorities are for tomorrow. I'm not going to worry about them until tomorrow. So I give myself permission to do the things like tomorrow, because I did my 3 things for today already. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does. I love it. How do you track what your 3 things are, or are they the same every day?
Oh, they're definitely not the same every day. I use it's called this self journal. If you go to bestself.co, there's a self planner and then there's a self journal. I use both of them. The self journal is the day-to-day situation. And then 13 weeks of, someone mentioned it about sprints and whatnot. So I'll use that. And then the self planner is typically 6 months of life at a time of what it is that you want to accomplish over a half year. So I try not to do much more planning than that because it gets too hard to do because too many things change. Like as soon as Lord willing, as soon as I close on this first hotel, a whole lot of things change really fast. I know that. So, that whole thing can change things, and we got to leave room for that growth and change to happen. So those are two of the tools that I use.
Thanks, Jay. Always a wealth of knowledge.
You're welcome. It also just means I've made a lot of.
Hey, mistakes really are good, right? That's how we learn.
Oh, I know. I've learned I call them experiments now. I'm like, that experiment failed. And let's keep proving this hypothesis. That's really what it comes down to. Everything is no until proven yes. And if we approach it that way, it goes better for me. Hopefully it goes better for you. So anyway, before I shut down the room, any other questions, anyone? Well, no?
I do want to just say that is you're the second person I heard that from about the 3 things. And that has definitely been something that I have incorporated over the past few months. And mine are more categories. If I can accomplish one thing in each category, one in family, one in personal, and then one in my business, then I have a successful day. So even if it's spending time with my kids or my husband or my cousin or, just something in family. And, I plan it out, the day before, like you were talking about, this is what I plan to do for the next day. But it's one thing in each category. And that has really, been a tremendous way of redefining, a successful day. So I definitely like that.
Yeah, I love that. I love how, because you can make it simple, and the success cycle is that simple because, when you're feeling good, you'll do it again. Right. And that because success leads to activity, and activity leads to accomplishment, and accomplishment leads to success, which then leads to activity. And that's really what ends up happening. And when you can put yourself on that cycle intentionally. And that's just what it is. I don't know any other way to do it. That's how I was taught. It's worked out. It works out well. It keeps my head in the right space. That doesn't mean things that I don't like don't happen. It just means those are things that are not a part of the equation. I get to define what success looks like today. And if I did it today, then great. Now, tomorrow is tomorrow. When I get to tomorrow, I'll define what success looks like that day. And I'll make it just as easy for me to obtain it. And when I keep track of everything that I'm stepping towards, it makes it really, really easy to be consistent and show up. And that's just how I know to do it. So hopefully, Kamika, this has helped and answered your question. All right, ladies and gentlemen, make sure this will be your opportunity to follow the club. Feel free to follow the club, the Cashflow Diary Cartel, or you can follow me if you want. Because what it comes down to is this season of content is all being done. A lot of it's being done right here on Clubhouse, especially our audio stuff. We have YouTube, TikTok, and everything else. There's not a social we're not on. And the team is producing content on the regular. So hopefully we can do our best to help you understand assets, help you become bigger, better, badder, and a different version of yourself so that this time next year, or even next month, you don't recognize you, because now you are generating completely different results in your own chosen field. And as I said before, I say again, for those of you who like the short-term rentals, because we do, feel free to click the link at the top of the room or go to cashflowdiary.com/blueprint. And we'll get you started at no additional cost and do our best to make sure that one day you can pay the cost to be the boss. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you for tuning in to the Cashflow Diary podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave a rating and a review. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, head over to CashFlowDiary.com to sign up for our email list, as well as check out all of the links and resources in the show notes. Thank you again. Until next time.